Attention, please. It's time for the final countdown. The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
And welcome everybody to this edition of Docs Taking on the Mormish here in Doc's Clinic. And today we are going to discuss something that I heard on a video just yesterday where they're talking about something called the Castuli Que Vie Act. And what's funny about this is while they were talking about this, they said this is a trust. And it is not a trust, and I do apologize. I am getting my homework right here, my research. So we're gonna get into that today. It was quite interesting to listen to this individual talk about this, as he had no idea what he was talking about, none whatsoever. And listening to him attempt to explain this to people was even funnier. So I thought to myself, you know what a better way to make a video again. Soft sits, moops, they play from the same playbook. The only difference is I really believe that the moops put more religious context into it than the soft sits do. But again, it's all the same playbook, just with a different name, different title. It's like bottles of ketchup. They're pretty much all the same. Little changes is here and there, different label, different shaped bottle in some cases, but they all play from the same playbook. I am going to take a look. I believe I do have that video. So let me just give a quick look-see. I'm just checking the. So anyways, basically what took place is Mr. Killoran went on to talk about that this is a trust. It's not a trust. This whole Castuli Que Vie Act of 1666. What it is, and I'll get right into it here to give you a brief overview, and I'll make sure I have now a Google Docs folder that I'm throwing this stuff into and sharing the link out so you guys are able to look at the documents that I'm looking at. But the one that caught my attention that I think is the funniest, and I believe this is probably where he got this information from, because it's I think like third in a Google search. Because again, remember, soft sits, moops, they do everything they can to push this stuff to the top. So it makes it seem like yes, this is the truth. Well, we all know you can fudge search results just by constantly searching and clicking and doing it over and over and over again. Well, that ticker just keeps picking it up and it pushes it to the top. So I went off and I found where I believe Mr. Killoran got this information from. And so to give you a little bit of interaction here, the first part of this is actual true about this. So they label it, and this, mind you, came from Australia. Okay, so we all know the free men on the land, the British soft sit, the movement over there, Canada and such. But anyways, what it was is in London in 1666, during the Black Plague and the Great Fires of London, Parliament enacted an act behind closed doors called Castuli Que Vie Act of 1666. Now, I'm going to give you just a little brief overview, and then I'll actually read 1 and 3. And this is from the actual act, the actual law. So what the act was being debated was to subrogate the rights of men and women, meaning all men and women were declared dead or lost at sea, beyond the sea. Back then, operating in admiralty law, the law of the sea, so lost at sea. So let me explain that. Basically, there was no way to identify people really like there is now. I mean, if somebody dies, you can use DNA, you can use hair, you can use skin, you can use dental records to ID somebody. Back then, during the Black Plague and during the Great Fires of London, there was just no way to identify these people. None at all. Pretty much it was a written log that, yes, such and such lived here and this number, parcel, however they addressed it then. Because you got to think about it, when these people were dying of the plague, they weren't so much worried about who it was. They were just trying to burn the bodies so that way the plague didn't spread. In doing this, what they did, and I will read from the actual law here, is they said, okay, we're going to put this act into place, and I will read this here so you have some content. There was an act that was put into place, which was this, which, yes, because they acted under admiralty law, they considered everybody lost at sea. So this is from the Sov Sit that wrote this stuff right here. The state of London took custody of everybody and their property into a trust. The state became the trustee, husband holding all titles to the people and property. Until a living man comes back to reclaim these titles, he can also claim damages. Now, that is all true. It's in the law here. It's right here. Okay. This was never meant as a trust, like Mr. Killoran wants to talk about, of how you can access this trust to pay debts or things of that nature, or that's what the straw man was set up. Now he's right on point now, this person that wrote this, until he gets into the next part, which he states, now here's the capital letter jargon that happens all the time from him. It says, when capital letters are used anywhere in the name, this always refers to a legal entity, fiction, company, or corporation, non-exceptions, e.g. John Doe in all capitals or Doe Jane. That's not true. The reason why we use capital letters is to bring attention. It's important. We want people to read it and see it. Hell, in the military, they teach you to write in all caps. Also, there's no confusion in lowercase lettering. More people write in capital letters just because it's easier. You can write faster in capital letters than you can in lowercase, doing a mixture of both of the two. But it does not signify a corporation that you're a corporation. It doesn't signify a straw man. Again, I am continuously doing research on this. There is no proof to this date that I've ever found that any corporation at all has ever been opened up using my name. And in my blog post that I did yesterday, I went back through and kind of wrote some of the stuff down because I found another one that had just an off the wall idea of what he thought, this actually meant when it comes to capital letters. And it all kind of plays together. This is another one of those little things where, you hear about it, you don't hear about it, you can prove it, you can't prove it. It's a very gray area in all of this. And I do apologize. And so, again, this is one of their favorite things, that anything that's in capital letters, your name, is a corporate fiction. It's your straw man account, and you have access to the straw man account. Well, let me tell you, if I've had access to that straw man account, I'd have already bought my second property and then some. And I think if everybody had access to this, that would be a thing. People would just be buying up houses, cash money. But that's not the case. None of that has ever been verified or true. So I do have a blog post here, and I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to get the link so you guys can, I'm going to put it right in the chat here. If you guys want to see it. And this is to my blog post. This is my blog right here. So, if you want to read that, feel free. I try to do a combination of blog posts and videos as well. I digress. So let's go back here a little bit. So in this, pretty much what it has come to is they believe that anything that the government, if the government has set it up, then it's a corporate fiction and it's your straw man account. Well, that's not true. So I'm going to go ahead and share this so you guys can see it. And we'll make it the full picture. Boom. There we go. So I had found this information from a blog and by Mr. Pao Chang, and this is what they want you to believe right here. Your legal name is a name that the government likes to use to attach, your identity of fictitious characteristics to it, allowing the government to identify you. It is important for you to know that your legal name is not the name given to you by your mother and father. Well, my reactions in red, that's actually pretty funny because I have the same legal name that's on my birth certificate that my parents gave me. So that made no sense right there. You're saying that the legal name is not my name that my parents gave me, that the name I have isn't what my parents gave me. Well, that's not true. Pretty much I just put, I said, well, that's funny. Since my legal name is the name that both my mother and father gave me, now they would like you to believe that the government gave you the name that you use today. And then we follow on. It says, instead, it is the name created by the government to make it easier for you to do business with its corporations. However, the government likes to use your legal name as a tool to control you. So it is wise to learn how to use your legal name wisely. Okay, that's all nothing but BS. That's word salad. That's confusive talk. None of that is facts at all. None of that is a fact. The same name that was given to me by my mother and father is the same name that's on my birth certificate. Is the same name that was in my elementary, middle school, high school, college records. Same name used when I entered the military, got discharged from the military. Same one that's on my DD-214. So, and to this day, it's on my driver's license. It's on my lease. It's on everything. It's on my power bill. So again, there's not two names. Okay, I don't care if it's in capitals, a mixture of the two, or lowercase. There holds no significance. So what I did was I actually went out and got some legal responses to this as well. So pretty much right here, it says, somebody had asked this question right here. What does it mean when your name is in bold or capital letters? I would like to know what it means when your name is in all caps on legal forms. I know someone who has had their wages garnished and they the state used a different last name, one letter off, and had her name in all caps. I have heard that this means that it's a corporation. I'm betting the one letter off was a typo. And the garnishment of a wages was done by your social security number. They pull that, they can see who you work for. It's on your W-2 or W-4, the form you fill out when you start a job. And that you can update whenever you need to for tax purposes. So I'm guaranteeing you that was a typo because those happen every day. And it had nothing to do with the corporation. So it comes down, there was a response from Alvin Lengren, who's a lawyer, and he goes, it means nothing other than your name is in capitals. The form or action in quale as valid as if your name was in all lowercase or if your name and then was mixed letters. It's all the same. So again, there's no legal bearing. There's no corporation. There's no nothing attached to your name done by the government at all. So I just wanted to get that, and we'll discuss more of that too, because I think it bears to be discussed further. Not a whole lot more. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but again, there's no such meaning or anything. And to this date, I went last night. I was up very late. I was doing research on this, and I found corporate lawyers that deal with government entities, contracts, dealing with outside contractors. And then I also found some constitutional scholars. One was from George Washington University. Another one was from Yale. And I asked the question, I said, what does this mean in legal? And is there any merit to any of this? So again, I'm going to people that are experts in this field to hopefully disprove this. Again, one thing we like to do here at Doc's Clinic, close those loops. We don't like them open. We want the chain to be solid. And if we can disprove another one of the soft sit moops claims, hey, we've been doing it for so long. Let's just keep reinforcing it. Sooner or later, the true legal aspects of these false claims, false documents, people trying this stuff, it's gonna hammer these people even further. So as we go in here, there's the capital letters, and then all of a sudden, the Castuli Trust, pronounced Castuli, common term in New Zealand and Australia, or here as we say, a straw man. There is no straw man account. I don't know why people believe this, because here's the thing. If this was the case, we would have known about this back in the 50s. This isn't something that just started up, or the 1930s. I think, this isn't something that just started, but yet there's no proof. Nobody has showed concrete proof on this. We've heard people say, oh yeah, this isn't my take on it. This is other people's. Well, okay. So you're just passing along false information. Show me proof. Show me the website you're going to verify this information. Don't just tell me to go out and research it. I'm going to research it anyways. But you're the one talking about it. Show proof. My thought process in all this is, if you start talking about something, the burden of proof is on you. It ain't on me. Because I can just look at you and say, nah, you're full of shit. You need to show. This is what soft sits and moops want all the time. Documentation. Put up the documentation. Put up or shut up. So they go on here and says, these are the legal entity fiction created and owned by the government who created it. It is like owning a share in the stock market. You may own a share, but it is still a share of the stock. These don't exist. There's no proof. Nobody has ever showed concrete, hardened evidence of this. Okay? So I'm still waiting for that. I challenge any of the best soft sits out there. Anna Von Wright, you and your cult group, RV Bay and all those. Go ahead. Prove it. Show me, give me step by step how I access this trust, because that's what everybody wants to know. If this trust is out there and there's money in it, I want to use it so I can pay off bills. Come on, show this stuff. You can't. That's what makes it great, is when they come back and say, well, I don't have to prove it. So it doesn't exist. It's kind of like that conversation where you talk to people and say, well, why is there a God? Well, yeah, prove it. I think some of the best theologists can explain that and answer that, but I believe in the layman's terms, for most of us that are Christians and whatnot, we believe in that in our heart. We believe there's a higher purpose for us as human beings, not to act like fucking idiots like we do half the time. So again, I part of my language, YouTube will probably strike that. So, okay. Legally, we are considered to be a fiction. No, fiction isn't real. I'm pretty much here. The one person watching me right now sees me. I'm here. I'm flesh and blood. I feel it. Okay? So that's bullshit. A concept or idea expressed as a name, a symbol, that legal person has no consciousness. Well, I am a legal person. I hold United States citizenship. So I am legally a citizen of the United States of America. So I have a consciousness, and I'm legal. And then they go on, it is a juristic person. Ingles legis. So again, they pull out these bullshit terms. A name word written on a piece of paper. Well, I know my name is on pieces of paper and government documents and things like that, like my driver's license, my insurance, my registration, birth certificate, DD-214, but I'm also right here. Same name, same person. You're wrong. And then it goes on, it says, this traces back to 1666. London is an independent city-state, just like the Vatican is an independent city-state. VYN. Help me out with that. And just like the Vatican is an independent city-state, just like Washington, D.C. is an independent city-state. Well, yes. Now we're going to talk about the actual law. Okay? This actual law now that they're trying to say a trust, which I have right here. There it is. So basically, this whole point, okay, I'm going to give you the breakdown like I did earlier. The whole point of this, because there were so many dead people that again, they didn't know who owned what. So this was a way. It may have seemed like they segregated or, got around man's law and found this way, but this was a way to protect these assets that were just left there because nobody knew. People were leaving their homes to get away from the plague, and so again, nobody knew. People were going to the country to get out of the city, so houses were left vacant. People were dying left and right. They didn't know who was coming back, who was going, so they said, you know what? We're going to make this easy. We're going to protect this. We're gonna take into the consideration that everybody is lost at sea. Now, here is the law. We're going to read this right here. It says, an act for redresses of inconveniences by want of proof of the deceases of persons beyond the seas or absenting themselves upon whose lives the state do depend. So again, people that have passed away, people that left. This was a protection. Okay. It says recital that Castuli Que Vie have gone beyond the sea, and the reservationers cannot find out whether they are alive or dead. Okay. It says, whereas diverse lords of manors and others have granted estates by lease for one or more life or else for years determinable upon one or more life or lives. And it hath often happened that such person or persons for whose life or lives such estate have been granted have gone beyond the seas or so absent themselves for many years that the lessors and the reversioners, I may have not said that right, cannot find out whether such a person or persons be alive or dead by reasons whereof such lessors and reservationers, that's it, okay, have been held out of possessions of their tenements for many years, after all the lives upon which such estates depend are dead, in regard that the lessors and reservationers, when they have brought actions for the recovery of their tenements, have been put upon it to prove the death of their tenements, when it is almost impossible for them to discover the same, for remedy of which mischief so frequently happen to such lesser or reservationists. The whole point of this was saying, we're protecting this property. We don't know if you're dead or if you left, okay? When the fires of London hit, it destroyed, I think it was just 60, 70% of London when that happened. So again, they're saying, we don't know. We don't know who's dead or alive right now. We don't know who left on their own accord to get away from the plague and went out to the country or went to a different city. We don't know. Okay. That is, that's going to be, this is found in 1666, chapter 11, 18, and 19, chapter 2, I believe what they have here. And then there's, in this one, there's annotations, abbreviations or contractions in the original form of this act have been expanded into modern lettering in the text set out above. Yeah, because if it was in Old English, I probably wouldn't be able to read it. All right, so here we go. This is the one right here. There's nothing. There's a 1.1, which is the people remaining beyond sea for 7 years together and no proof of their lives, judge in action to direct a verdict as though those people were dead. Okay, so that's basically what this was taking place right here. If you were gone over 7 years, they gave you 7 years is what they did. For 7 years, they held and protected your property. Nobody could buy it. They couldn't sell it. Nobody else could move into it. So this is what took place. So right here, it says, if such a person or persons for whose life or lives such estates have been or shall be granted as aforesaid shall remain beyond the sea or elsewhere, absent themselves in this realm me by the space of 7 years together, and no sufficient and evident proof be made of their lives of such person or persons respectively in any action commenced for recovery of such tenements by the lessor or reservationers. In every such case, the person or persons upon whose life or lives such estate dependent shall be accounted as naturally dead. So if you didn't show up in 7 years, or there wasn't proof to say, hey, yeah, this guy's still alive, he's living over here now. He this is where he's at right now. He's still alive. So then you would be marked, if there's no proof of that, though, you would be labeled dead, okay? Naturally dead. And in every action brought for the recovery of the said tenements by the lesser or reservationers, their heirs or assignees, the judge before whom such action shall be brought, shall direct the jury to give their verdict as if the person so remaining beyond the sea or otherwise absent himself were dead. Okay, so say it happens, my family moves out, but I die, my wife dies, but my heirs are my daughters. So they would come back and say, we're the heirs of this family. My father died this year, this date. My mother died this year, this date. We're here to claim his property. So because I've died and my wife's died, they're going to mark us as natural deaths. And my property will then go to my heirs. Okay. So now there's nothing in Section 2. It was repealed by Statute Law Revision Act of 1948, Section 1. Yes, there was a new law in England that came down and kind of cleared this up a little bit better. And then Section 3 was repealed. It was textually by Senate Law Revision Act of 1836. So there's been a couple different revisions to this. So that's the other part. These soft sits aren't reading the revisions. Okay. Now here it is. If the supposed dead man proved to be alive, then the title is revested. Action for means profits with interest. Okay. This is the part right here where they talk about if you're proven alive, everything comes back to you. Let's see here. Provided always that if any person shall be evicted out of any lands or tenement by virtue of this act, and afterwards, so basically what they're saying is, if you were kicked out of the property by the start of this act for the next 7 years, because they had no way to tell who you were, okay, they said, no, you got to go. And afterwards, if such person or persons upon whose life or lives such estate or estates depend shall return again from beyond the sea, or shall on proof in any action to be brought for recovery of the same, to be made appear to be living, or to have been living at the time of the eviction, that then and from then forth the tenant or leasee who was outed of the same, his or their executioner, administrators, or assignees shall and may re-enter, repossess, and hold and enjoy the said lands or tenements in his or their former estate for and during the life or lives or so long term as the said person or persons upon whose life or lives the said estate or estates depend, shall be living. The soul shall, upon action or actions to be brought by him or them against the lesser reservationers or tenements in possession of other persons respectively, which since the time of the said eviction received the profits of the said lands or tenements recovered for damages, the full profits of the lands or tenements respectively will be lawfully interested for and from the time here they were outed of the said lands or tenements and kept or held out of the same by the same lesser reservationers, tenants, or other persons who after the said eviction received the profits of the lands and the tenements. So basically what's that saying? If any money was made off that property since the time they were evicted to the time they came back, they get that all back. Okay? They get that all back with interest. And that's that right there. So they go on to say them respectively as well, the case when the said person or persons upon whose life or lives such estate or estates did depend are shall be dead at the time of bringing of the said action or action, as if said person or persons were then living. So even if they died, they still get that money. They would go to their family. So this is not a trust, okay? The law Well, this is not a trust we have any sort of connection to. Okay. It is not your corporate straw man. It is not a trust. There's no money in it for you. This was something that literally lasted. It was meant to last 7 years. There were revisions because there were still people claiming property and stuff past the 7 years. And so they made revisions to it. But again, what was said is there is no, oh, excuse me. There is no proof of that. So what I want to try to do is I want to play you this clip where he's talking about this. So what I'm going to do here, because there's actually a lot of this video that I want to get into too, because he's going to bring up another law in this video, which is, and again, I pulled this last night and this was in my dead of night sleeping, is there is a public law and it is titled 7310. And what he's trying to say in this is that in there it says government is responsible for all debts. But he forgets to read further on. Government is not responsible for our personal debt. Buying a house, buying a car, buying a boat, whatever. Running up a credit card bill. Government is not responsible for paying for that. That is personal responsibility. That's us. We took out those loans. We need to pay them. I'm going to start this video right here. It's probably going to add, it's about a 20-minute long video, but I started it about 2 minutes in just to get him through his ramblings. And I want you guys to listen to this and let me know in the comments when, if you watch it in the live stream or if you're going to watch it later, let me know what your thoughts. And this is where what I've just talked about will go into play. So let's go ahead and we're going to slide this video right in here. I think it needs to be put in. I've included it.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
You're
all are well. Yeah. Got a few things I wanted to.
The one thing I have noticed now over time is Brandon has gotten a lot calmer. He still brings up the noise, which is still non-existing. He has given no insight of what he has actually done to remedy this. He's still thinking the police need to take care of this, but this is not a police matter on the noise. I actually got a letter back. I sent like 15 letters out to the area where he lives to around him. And I got a letter back and I'm going to scan it in and attach it to my blog. So make sure you go out there and read that. But it's from one of the people out there and they answer all my questions. And I thought it was great. I was like, awesome. Thank you. This helps. Again, these are people that live literally around him in the same neighborhood. So we'll post that. But here we go. Like I said, I have noticed he has gotten a lot calmer when he talks. So maybe just today, nobody riled him up.
To address here. I was considering getting back to the and continuing the RICO.
Okay. The other thing too is I'll take a snapshot of his channel, and if you want to go check it out, please do. I mean, you'll be thoroughly entertained. He tries to explain the RICO Act, but he has very little knowledge of what the RICO Act actually is. So one of the things that I do personally before I do videos, I try to do a little background research on what I'm going to talk about, so I have a little bit of base knowledge of it. It looks like he's just reading it off. It sounds like he's just reading it off a PDF. It sounded good for him, so he went ahead. I'm kind of glad he didn't continue with it because I've listened to the 3-hour-long Anavon Wright State National BS weekly things, and that's like drilling your head out through your ears, and that's just as bad as listening to him talk about this or talk about the RICO
Act primer and overview. But I think also, according to public law 73-10, it's the government's responsibility to pay all debts. in fact,
Now, that's not true. What he's taking that as is the government's responsible for paying all our debts. Okay? What the law actually states is it's for the government to pay their debts when they enter into an agreement. Perfect example. Government puts an order in for 35 F-35 fighters. Okay? Whatever the price is, they have that debt that they have to pay now. They put in the order, now they need to pay for it. That's what this talks about. It doesn't talk about paying your own private personal debt. That's not what Public Law 7310 is all about. So again, take that as the pretense through this whole thing when you hear him talk.
many of us are being defrauded out of our energy and life and happiness because we're essentially being 100% taxed, not by the government.
Okay, so he says we're all being 100% taxed, but then we're not. I mean, proof. You can't say essentially are. Prove it. Don't tell me to go out and research it. Prove it. Where are you finding this information? Burden of proof is on you.
Per se, but by the corporations that we contract with. You see, when you have a contract with, we'll say the municipal government for water service or sewage, that sort of thing, trash pickup. See, it's the government's responsibility to pay that debt, that bill for those services, according to Public Law 73-10. This isn't my perspective or opinion.
Yes, this is his perspective and opinion on somebody who only read 3 sentences in this, okay? I have it. Okay, that's what the clinic's all about, that daily dose of reality. Before we go any further, nowhere does it state that you can discharge your debt, your personal debt, or your bills to the federal government. Okay? That's your personal responsibility. You want water and sewage services? You got to pay for them. The government is not paying for everything. Okay? And please don't, I really don't want to find the person that finds this video and says, well, we pay taxes. Yes, that's to fund the federal government. That's also to fund state governments in some states. That's not to pay your personal responsibilities. There are responsibilities, and some of them cost money that go along with owning a house. But so if you go to Title 18, Part 1, Chapter 1, Section 1, Subsection 8, I'm going to read this to you right here. It's the obligation or other security of the United States defined. So the term obligation or other security of the United States includes all bonds, certificates of indebtedness, national bank currency, Federal Reserve notes, Federal Reserve bank notes, coupons, United States notes, treasury notes, gold certificates, silver certificates, fractional notes, certificates of deposit, bills, checks, or drafts for money drawn by upon authorized officers of the United States. Stamp in or other representative of value or whatever denomination issued under any act of Congress and canceled United States stamps. So again, that right there, that section right there tells you, no, this doesn't cover your personal bullshit. You're responsible for paying that, okay? This tells me, again, he did not read. He wrote, somebody sent him something that has been passed around the soft sit community playbook, and now he thinks this is it. The International Bill of Exchange is legal tender as a national banknote or note of a national banking association by legal and or statutory definition. Again, this is just part of it. There is an entire write-up on this, taking it from different titles within our federal law. And nowhere in there does it state anywhere that it's your personal debt. So we continue.
My words, I'm going by what the law states. And it states very clearly that it's the government's responsibility to pay all debts. Since 1933, when the gold standard was taken away, and essentially.
So the reason why the gold standard was taken away is due to the credit system that was given to countries. Okay. And what that was based off is just like your credit score, paying your bills on time, paying your loans, not defaulting on anything, making sure you're meeting your financial obligation. There are very few countries that back up their currency in gold. That's what it's worth off of. Yes, there are countries that have large amounts of gold. Some of those countries keep their gold reserves in our Federal Reserve banks across our country. But there is no, when the gold standard was released, we had to come to a form of currency based on our country's credit worthiness. So that's why we have what we have.
We, the people, were collateralized against the debt. The federal government, has set up trusts for each of us to pay the debts that we accrue through our activities, as well as benefit us by allowing us to acquire property. You see, the whole concept of whether it's a automobile or a house or property, whatever you want to call it, real estate, no matter what you're buying, no matter what agreement you get into, if a corporation is expecting you to pay fiat dollars, Federal Reserve notes, money, whatever you want to call it, it's technically not money, but that's what most people call it these days. So we'll just use that term so people are familiar and can comprehend what I'm talking about. Because real money has been removed from our society, the government has replaced real money, gold and silver, precious metals, with Federal Reserve notes. And these are essentially IOUs.
Now,
regardless of that
right
point,
there, that comment that he just made, I do apologize. I was dealing with. Let me go back to that.
To pay fiat dollars, Federal Reserve notes, money, whatever you want to call it. It's technically not money, but that's what most people call it these days. So we'll just use that term so people are familiar and can comprehend what I'm talking about.
There's that little narcissistic insult he likes to throw at people. He thinks everybody that listens to this is not as educated as him. Well, he's not very educated. Now, again, those are not IOU notes. They're backed up by our credit worthiness. And when interest rates go up, less people invest in our dollar. Countries invest in the U.S. dollar. When our interest rates, or more countries invest because they get a better return. When interest rates go down, not so many countries want to invest in the U.S. dollar. It's just like you can go and invest in the Korean yen. You can invest in any country's currency. A lot of where it bases its price, though, and its value is based on the country's credit worthiness. That's why it's a big deal when we saw our credit worthiness go from a AAA standard to a AA standard. That's a huge deal. So we want to make sure whoever's running the country understands that running this country is like running a business, and we want to have that AAA credit rating because that means our money and our credit worthiness is good, which means our money holds value because it's based on our credit worthiness.
Because real money has been removed from our society, the government has replaced real money, gold and silver, precious metals, with Federal Reserve notes. And these are essentially IOUs. But regardless of that.
That is wrong. They are not IOUs, or they would say IOUs on them.
Point. When we contract with, or I should say when I contract with a corporation to acquire property, say an automobile finance or something like that, what's essentially happening is because at the times when I've signed those contracts.
Now, I want you to listen to this pure BS because this is not how it works. I have 3 friends that are certified public accountants. My wife has a couple friends that work in the banking industry as loan officers. This is not true whatsoever. When I heard this, I made a couple phone calls to verify this. And like I said, anything that pretty much comes out of his mouth isn't true because, again, he posts no sources for this. He posts no links, nowhere to go to actually find what he's reading and talking about. But listen to this. After he's all done talking about, I'll pause it and give you my take on it, or the actual way it actually happens for the rest of the population that's normal.
I wasn't fully aware. I wasn't fully informed of the business relationship and the amount of profits that the dealership would be making off of the contract. It's fraud. Because according to Public Law 73-10, it's the government's responsibility to pay for that debt. So when I go, let's say hypothetically, I go finance a vehicle, quote unquote finance a vehicle. See, what happens is the dealership or the bank that does the financing accesses the Castuli Que Vie Trust through the U.S. Treasury, and what they do is they get paid 100% of the value of the contract. So if you buy a vehicle for $30,000 and you finance it, the finance company immediately gets $30,000 from the U.S. Treasury based on that contract, or through the process.
That is not true. Okay, how this works actually? Again, in my growing up years, I worked for a car dealership, one of the bigger ones in the area that I lived in. And so I was privy to learn how that works by the manager of new car sales. This is how it works. You find the car you want. They give you the price. You say, I'm going to go to my bank for financing and say the price of the car is $18,000. Okay. You go to your bank, you pull out a loan, but with the interest rate, and that's how banks make their money, is interest on loans. And we should all know that. That's basic. It's just like how credit cards make their money is by you missing a payment and them charging an interest rate. So anyways, they turn around and the bank cuts you a check for what the car is worth. And now you sign an agreement with the bank that over this many months or this many years, you're going to pay X amount of dollars every month to pay off the loan the bank gave you, because now the bank has a red mark in their ledger because they just lent you the money to pay for the car. Okay. And that amount owed is the amount of the car, the sales cost, which has its tax included and whatever other fees, plus the interest the bank is going to charge you on that loan. Okay. So that now becomes a red ledger in their books. They don't get any money from the Treasury Department. There's no Treasury Department dropping 18 or whatever the loan cost is into their bank account. That's not how that works at all. I don't know who told him this. I don't know where he read this. I'm still trying to find it, but that's not how this works. And this is truly his interpretation of Public Law 7310. Okay? So that is not how it happens. Now, as you pay that loan off on time, one of the things that the bank offers you as a way of saying thank you for paying your loan on time or early or paying more than you needed to, making an extra payment, is they turn around and report to the credit bureau every month that, hey, John Smith just made his auto payment on time. That goes to the credit bureaus and your credit score starts to raise because your credit score also sees, those credit companies see the loan you took, so now you have debt. Okay, and they look at that as well. They look at that debt, and they're like, and that affects your credit score. So you want to keep your debt limit low, and you want to make your payments on time. Because as your debt limit drops and your payments are coming in on time every month, guess what happens? Your credit score goes up. Because they're like, wow, look at that. He's paying that debt off. And so every month, when the credit bureaus look at your account or when they apply changes, they're like, oh, the debt went down by this amount. Oh, and this payment came in on time. Awesome. So you get an increase in your credit score. It also helps because now you're building a relationship with that finance company. So if you go to buy a house and you use that bank or that finance company, because of your good track record and your reputation of paying your loan on time, they look at that and that lowers the risk of signing an agreement with you for a larger loan. These are loans. These banks aren't getting any money from the Treasury Department. None. So I don't know where he read this. I'm going to have to try to hunt this down, but that is not how this works. Not one bit.
I'll say not immediately like that day, but I think it generally takes like 45 days or so. Anyways, the finance company gets paid. They get paid by the Treasury, according to 73-10, Public Law 73-10. That debt is paid. But what they do is they double dip. They get paid by the U.S. Treasury, but then they turn around and they require payments over a certain term and typically profit 100%, if not more, profit off of the contract. So not only do they profit off of the sale and the profit margin there off of the sale itself, but by double dipping and charging me, the quote-unquote customer, the full value of the contract on top of what they were already paid, that's fraud. It's a trust fraud action because they already have gotten paid. And again, whether this is an automobile finance or a mortgage, it doesn't make a difference. The only way we're able to do business and conduct business in this manner is by way of those trusts. If those trusts weren't there, there would be no money to facilitate the business or funds, whatever you want to call it.
So again, the way banks make money is interest. That's why they don't like it when you make extra payments and it hits the principal balance. It's less money they're going to make because there's less money to charge interest on. That's why people like Dave Ramsey and other financial gurus will tell you, pay off your loan as soon as possible. Instead of a 30-year mortgage, do a 15-year mortgage. There's reasons why banks, in some cases, they won't allow you to make an extra payment or up to a certain amount of an extra payment to a loan because they know they're losing money. That's when they lose the money. It's not the money you borrowed. It's the interest on the money you borrowed that they're banking on. That's easily an extra couple $1,000s. And that's how banks make their money. They only have so much money to lend out. And yes, they're insured by the FDIC for your accounts up to so much, and banks are insured against theft and damage and things of that nature. But they make their money. They don't get extra money from the federal government. They make their money on the interest they charge for loans and other services. That's just like that $5 paper statement fee they hit you with. That's what it is. It's a way to make money.
See, this is the fraud that the corporations have been perpetrating on us, on we the people, scamming us out of our hard-earned profits, energy, life, happiness, because when I don't pay, even though they've already gotten paid by the government, which is in accordance with the law, and they were fully compensated for the property that was transferred, whether it be an automobile or a real property, real estate. They are turning around. It's blatant and outright fraud on the face of it. But if I don't pay, even though they've already gotten paid.
They haven't already gotten paid. And if you don't pay, yes, they can charge you a late fee. They can hit your credit score for missing a payment. They can, after so much, attempt to repossess it. I mean, that's your responsibility. The finance company was never paid. You are paying back the loan you borrowed from them. That's how it works. Again, Show the proof. If you're going to sit here and talk about it, you got to show the proof that you're talking about.
If I don't pay them the extra, basically 100% tax on top of the profits they've already made, they threaten to take the property. And in many situations, they have. Because I wasn't fully aware of the actual contract. And
so when he makes this statement, that's telling me he didn't read the contract all the way through and didn't ask questions.
The fraud that the finance company and the dealership or the company, whatever at the time, whomever I was dealing with at the time, or both, decided to act dishonorably and trick me. The only way there can be...
I love it. Always playing the victim. Always playing the victim. You didn't get tricked. You didn't ask questions.
Be a contract. Well, I mean, there's certain stipulations to there being a legal contract. One of those stipulations is meeting of the minds. I cannot be held to a contract if I wasn't fully informed of the details of the contract.
You know how you get fully informed? And this is from somebody who's bought 4 cars and a house and has rented several times. You know that contract, that lease agreement, that loan agreement? You read it. You read over it before you sign anything. You can actually ask for a copy of your loan paperwork before you sign it because you want to read it over. So what this is telling me is, I was tricked because I can't enter into any contract if I don't understand it. Well, you didn't read it properly. You didn't ask any questions. So this is all your fault. It's nobody else's. It's your lack of understanding and not asking questions.
And this is just taking advantage. It's well, I won't get into all that, but it's fraud. It's blatant fraud. These banks,
You see it right there? He can't explain it because he doesn't know how to explain it because this is his own take on this. This is what soft citizens do. He cherry picks some stuff to make it sound like it's this horrible thing when he actually doesn't know the process.
Financial institutions, these dealerships, these corporations that we contract with are ripping us off because we're not supposed to pay for anything. According to public law 73-10, it's the government's responsibility to pay those debts. Because of the changes that the government made in 1933, this is the way that the government set it up. So, again, this isn't my perspective. This isn't me saying this. I'm telling you what I'm reading. I'm telling you what the federal government has set up. And if you don't believe me, I don't care. If you want to figure it out, go look up the law yourself, 73-10, public law 73-10.
And that's what I'm doing right now, Mr. Killoran. And guess what? Nothing that you have stated is remotely in this contract or in this law. So I'm still trying to find this neat little banking loop circle you keep talking about.
You can look up that, and you can also research the Castuli Que Vie Trust, which is spelled CESTUI space QUE space VIE. If you research what that is, that's the trust that has been granted to each of us for our benefit. That's the trust that's been established since our quote-unquote birth, and our parents registered us with the government and created the birth certificate and the social security number and all that sort of thing.
And that's not true as well.
See, what you don't understand is that all caps name on your license, on
We just covered this, and this is false as well.
your birth certificate, on many government documents, that all caps name is the name of the trust. That's not you. That driver's license is not you. That's the driver's license of the trust. It identifies you as the beneficiary.
Now, again, how does that make any sense? It's not you. It's the name of the trust, which identifies you as the beneficiary. So it is you. Again, where do you read this stuff? Where are you finding this? I'm sorry. Every time I hear this kind of crap, it bothers me, because I'm the type of person that I go out and I research this and I find the lies. And it's horrible. It's not just trying to get out of tickets and you're traveling and I don't need a driver's license or insurance or whatever. It's this kind of crap right here. The fact that you don't want to take personal responsibility for your own life. It's everybody else's fault but yours. That's the problem here. And until you see that, you will continuously live in this miserable little circle you live in.
That's why your picture's on it. So when you get pulled over and a cop asks for your ID and says, "Is this you?" and you say yes, you're saying that you are that piece of plastic. You're saying that you are the trust. And you have no rights at that point. It's just that simple. So I encourage you all to do your due diligence and research and validate these things that I'm talking about. Don't take my word for it. It is appalling what is going on in this country today. What we the people have allowed, because of our ignorance, allowed these tyrants and criminals to get away with. These politicians who blatantly and openly act against our best interest and make excuses for it. So I encourage you all to research what I'm talking about. If you find yourself in the middle of a situation where you have an automobile or a property, a real property that you're being threatened.
This does not do anything either. This is all BS mumbo jumbo that soft sits and moops think somehow protect them, and yeah, it's crap.
By a finance company or a government agency or any corporation that's threatening to take that property from you. You have rights. You just need to know who you are and what your rights are. These people acting as public officials and government officials, they don't dictate to you. They can if you accept it. But let me put it this way. They don't dictate to me what my rights are. I know who I am. I know.
Sad thing is, yes, they do. It's already been proven several times.
My rights are, and no man or woman is going to tell me that I have less rights than they do, because that's unconstitutional, and it's ungodly. It's immoral. So, with all that being said, I encourage you to consider this. Most of us have been brainwashed and programmed into thinking that it's our civic duty to be a contributing member of society and pay your taxes and pay your bills and all that kind of stuff. Well, it's just programming. It's based on a false reality. Because it's not our responsibility to pay these bills.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead.
It's the government's responsibility.
At this time, I'm going to pause this. He continues on rambling like that for the next 10 minutes. And, it is Mr. Killoran. This is what we're used to. But I just wanted to go over this. As you saw, all three of these things fit hand in hand. He says he's not a sovereign citizen, but he plays the playbook really well. He is one. He just may not call himself one by name, but he is. Again, I just wanted to get this out here. Thanks for tuning in. I know this video went a little long. I'm trying to do my best to shorten them, but I get really passionate about this stuff. So I do appreciate everybody being part. If you're a part of the live chat for a little bit, I do appreciate that. Feel free to like, subscribe, and share. Make sure you hit that bell so you're notified whenever the next live video comes on so you can be part of the live chat. And again, I thank everybody for being part. And we are out of here. Mind blown.